So I don't think I've had enough hateful comments in the last 2 videos, so I thought I would go a little bit more controversial. Actually, this isn't controversial at all. I think this is a very real issue, and it's so real, and I can't believe that more people aren't talking about it. But there's something going on that is really important, and you could see that in the title. Is it better to be strong, or is it better to be sane? And who's really going to survive in the end? I say it's the sane who will survive. That strength has very little to do with it. But we're going to break it down. First, we're going to take a deep breath, and I'm going to see you on the other side. So we all understand the very basic premise of insanity being defined as doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And we're really doing that. We're doing it at the civilization, we do it at empire level, and we understand it in today's world as a problem, reaction, solution, right? That's how we are manipulated into moving around and creating different situations. But at our very core, most people are still operating from the assumption that a problem is meant to be solved, and we're getting stuck at that level. But the reality is if we take a step back, that's what that problem, reaction, solution is. It has us chasing problems around that may or may not be pertinent or relevant to our basic survival. And so you have to ask yourself, is that really the sane thing to do? In addition, we're seeing all this insanity, right, online, in the web, in the media, to the point where it's getting more and more difficult to even know or understand what is real and what is true. And the bottom line on that is we'll never come to a 100% consensus about what is real and what is true. If you really want to dig into it, you can look up the terms cognitive dissonance and confirmation bias. Those are 2 things that contribute to our inability to discern what is real and what is true. It also, both of those go to the fact that I spoke to the other day, is that we make decisions not based on fact, reason, and logic, but emotionally. Now, most people don't believe that about themselves, but if we spent some time, we broke it down, most decision making comes from some level of emotion, and there is confirmation bias. They have thousands of studies that prove that. But confirmation bias and cognitive dissonance still don't explain what is real and true. It just explains how we have trouble discerning new information that doesn't fit into our existing paradigm of belief and what we define as reality. So if we go back to this idea again, if insanity is really doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, we're kind of at a place in our civilization and in our humanness that we are seeing the real ending of a pretty significant chunk of time. Even if the Earth catastrophe scenario is not real, even if the sun never novaed, even if we were just to move forward with the existing issues, structures, problems that we have in place right now, we're still pretty much at a catastrophic edge of what it even means to be human and how we move forward, whether that's the AI technology issue, whether it's how we move forward in terms of our relationships with each other as we see migration and things like that kind of go crazy. So we're at a very pivotal point. And so while I don't think any of us can ever really understand what's real or what's true, it really isn't a question of brute strength. We have this idea about survival of the fittest, but the truth is it's not strength of the body. It's not physical fitness that determines survival, and it's not even a hard-ass attitude, right, of, well, I'm going to kill everybody that gets in my way because I want to survive more than anybody else has a right to live. That's really the basis of insane thinking, because that problem has never been solved in that way. Maybe in the movies, but not in real life. And if you really look into more detail about how, when civilization collapses, what processes are really happening and what emerges, we have this idea that it's all road warrior all the time. But if that was true, humans wouldn't be alive today. We would have extincted ourselves a long time ago. So let's just roll it back again. So insanity is the definition, or we're defining insanity as doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So if we look at problem and solution, if we keep trying to solve the same problems with the same solutions, why are we thinking there's going to be a different outcome this time? Are we special? I don't really think so. And what really has my attention, where I am most interested, isn't what is the problem and what is the solution, because I don't even think that's the point. I think the more interesting question is, why do we choose to solve specific problems? And why do we choose to not solve specific problems? Or why do we do the work in some areas and we don't do the work in other areas? And truly, if we're going to do the same thing and expect different results, why do we keep working in one direction and expecting to get that same kind of work to solve the problem in a new way? It just doesn't make any sense, because the bottom line is what we've been doing, it hasn't been working. And I really believe to my core that the critical component of survival, whether it's short-term or long-term, regardless of what the problem or the solution is, the key is figuring out how to stay sane. And the best way to define your personal sanity isn't by what you believe or by what you think. This is where most people don't want to know what they don't want to know about themselves. The key is spend a few minutes and actually look at where you spend your time, where you spend your money, and where you spend your energy. And I always talk about energy as thoughts, feelings, and actions. How are you spending your time? How are you spending your energy to act? What actions are you actually taking that will be moving you towards some kind of survival, versus how much of your time, money, and energy are going into things that really aren't going to contribute to your quality of life now, to make you strong now so that you can survive. We are in a really interesting period of time where there is so much disillusionment with what's going on out there, but there's also this fantasy world that we have about what life actually is. And you can never prove it to anybody. You can read social media comments and see that it's prevalent. But my interest is in, really, why don't we do the work? And that's the question of being sane. Are we insane to keep trying to do something the same way and expect a different result? If that's true, you know, what kind of food are we eating? How much exercise are we doing? What type of exercise? How much time are we spending in front of the computer screens? How many personal relationships do we have that create a positive experience for us? There's the list could go on and on forever. But what I really want to toss out here, if you really want to know if you're sane, then look at where you're spending your money, your time, and your energy. And in any way are those three things contributing to the reality of you surviving? It's a very simple question. Most people don't like the answer, so they're not willing to even ask that question or look at it. And it's not about being right or wrong. It's about our own personal journey in this whole process. And no, everybody doesn't survive everything, but it's amazing how much of our time, our money, and our actions don't contribute in any way, shape, or form to our true survival, meaning our quality of life, our ability to live well, our happiness, our health, really core things that are at the crux of survival. Not what we buy, not what we have in storage, and not whatever story we're telling ourselves, but what we're actually doing with our mind, with our time, with our money, and with our feet. A sane person is willing to not only ask that questions, but to start doing something different, because survival isn't about being strong or the fittest. It's about being sane enough that sometimes we need to do something differently. I believe we are at that moment in time, but hey, that's just my opinion. So with that, we're going to take a deep breath, and I will see you next time.